Hey there, Dr. Harry again from the Medicine Revived podcast and blog, and welcome back to another episode of Ask Me Thursdays. So today's episode, we're going to be talking about something that came across, a question that had come across me was, Harry, it seems like you're so very busy. What do you do on your off times? And that was a great question. What really the heart of the question is, what are your hobbies? Harry, what are your hobbies? And I thought, what a good opportunity to talk about hobbies, especially as we are in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic. What are my hobbies? And more importantly, how can you choose healthy hobbies, especially toward your wellness? Because friends, for our wellness, be it if you're a physician, a nurse, or a paramedic, our wellness is so important that a healthy hobby must be included toward that goal of wellness. So why? Why do we struggle so much with getting a healthy hobby? Because we all have thought about it, right? We've all thought about choosing a hobby, but it never quite sticks, right? It never quite sticks. And why is that? Well, part of it, I think, is because I think many of us think that a hobby is childish, that we are too old to have a hobby. I think that's part of it. But the other one is time. I think many of us think that we don't have the time to actively pursue a hobby. And I'm going to tell you some of my strategies that I've worked around that. So why? Why are hobbies important? Because they're so important toward our emotional, our mental, and our physical health. There is a 2015 study that actually showed that having a healthy hobby, having a leisure activity, helps improve your emotion, decrease your stress, it actually lowers your heart rate. So there's a scientific reason for it, but more importantly, it's mentally important for you to have a healthy hobby. So let's get to it. Why? Why do we need hobbies, and how do you choose a hobby? That's the crux of what we're going to be talking about today, is how do you choose a healthy hobby? Well, for me, a hobby has to have three things. And I encourage you to, when you're pursuing a hobby, look for these three specific things. Number one, it has to be a distraction or a diversion from your daily work life. That is a must, absolutely must. Number two, it has to be enjoyable. You have to enjoy this thing, because if it's not an enjoyable thing that you're pursuing, then it just becomes work, which is the complete opposite of what I'm trying to do for you. And number three, it has to be somewhat stimulating to the mind and to the body. Again, we're going to use the hobby to grow. That's what I want for you, to grow and to thrive in your personal and your professional life. So it has to include all those three things. So let's use an example on how you can choose a hobby. Well, you have to look back. What is a hobby that you think you might enjoy, and dig deeper? So let's use photography for an example. You want to pursue photography. Well, what does that mean? In order for you to pick a good hobby, a good healthy hobby, you have to try to be as specific as you can. So for photography, let's say we use that as an example. Well, do you want to pursue outdoor photography, black and white photography, still photography? How about using the macro lens? Try to get as specific as you can. For a good healthy hobby to last you a lifetime, I'd much rather you have a narrow focus and go deep, rather than a very shallow focus that goes wide, because you're not going to pursue it. It's not going to be a love of yours. So for me, as an example, this thing right here, I've recently started learning to play the guitar. But I said to myself, well, learning to play the guitar is very, very broad. So I specifically wanted to learn to play the electric guitar, but very specifically, I wanted to learn to play rock. Specifically, I wanted to learn songs from the 70s and 80s. Guitarists, from that time period are some of the best guitarists in the world. And for me, that was what my motivation is. The electric guitar, specifically that genre of music of rock around the 70s and 80s. So that's a good example. How about the arts? Let's use the arts as an example. Well, I want to learn how to draw. Okay, do you want to learn how to draw pencil, charcoal? Do you want to use paints, acrylics? Try to get as specific as you can to pursue this hobby. And let's talk about the elephant in the room, and the most common excuse that people use to not pursue a hobby is time. I don't have the time to pursue a hobby, and I will tell you that is completely false. the best way that I found, and I encourage you to do the same, is you have to schedule it. You simply just have to schedule it. No different than if you're scheduling a patient. Schedule this time for you. This has to be for you and nobody else. Schedule this time. So I do a weekly schedule, and I've talked about this before. We'd have a date night with my wife and I every Sunday if I can, and we go through our week hour by hour for the next coming week. And in it are my hobbies. What hobby and the time specifically that I will dedicate toward my hobby, and my wife does the same for hers. I dedicate my time for my hobbies, I dedicate my time for my workouts. It's all laid out so you don't feel guilty when that time comes that, I feel bad because I want to be home with the kids, I want to be home with my spouse. That's all well and good, and that absolutely should be a priority for you. But what I also want to do is I want you to take time out for you, because that, my friends, is how you will reach that level of wellness that I've always wanted for you. So that's how it is. Please look into pursuing a healthy hobby toward your wellness. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have another question for me, please submit a question. The contact link will be just below here. So until next time, be good to yourself and each other. We'll talk again soon.